Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome. It is Thursday, April the 17th. Doing a live show today. If you guys could repost it, tell your friends, your associates. I think this is going to be a very, very interesting conversation. Simon Dixon is going to join us, one of the early adopters. And that's what this is. This space is going to be called, this discussion with Simon is going to be called The Mistakes of a Crypto Early Adopter. And I'm going to build the case, and Simon and I can discuss this a little bit, but he's been in since, I think, 2008, 2009. I've been in since 2020. And I think he will agree with me that we are all today still early adopters. And I think there's a lot of mistakes being made by a lot of people. And a lot of people are getting ready to make quite a few mistakes in the Bitcoin crypto landscape. Simon, good to have you here, pal. Thank you very much for taking up part of your day.
Thanks for having me, Gary.
Yeah, buddy, good to have you. Just take your time doing it. I was just setting people up with what we're going to talk about today. We're not talking about war. We're not talking about politics. We're talking about mistakes of a crypto early adopter. And I could not think of anyone better than you. In fact, I'd love you to give me a couple of names after this of other people I could chat with, because I think, and I'd love your comment on this, but I think that you came in this space in 2009, 2008, very, 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 very early. Like he was one of the virgins and one of the creators, really, and pioneers, whatever you want to call it. I came in 2020. I think I'm an early adopter. Okay. I think he's an early adopter. I think I'm an early adopter. And I think people that are buying Bitcoin yesterday are still early adopters. And Simon, I think many of the mistakes that were made on FTX, on Celsius, on whatever, a private equity. I go from $200 Bitcoin to 2,000, then I decide I'm a private equity investor. I see exactly the same mistakes being made today. I'm hearing, I'm going to sell my Bitcoin for MSTY. And I'm like, have we heard this story before? I think we've seen this story before. So that's really what this is designed to do, is like maybe walk through your background and give a couple of examples. We're going to just do short little examples of, okay, I bought Bitcoin at 30, went to 3,000. I sold it. I bought a company. I've yet to make that money back. Those kind of stories for me are, and I think we have to start with the first principle, which is you and I have a principle that we really share in common. And that principle is relative to Bitcoin. I want to own more Bitcoin tomorrow than I did yesterday or last week, right? It doesn't have to be every day, but I want to continue to add to my stack. And one of the things that I noticed that I really wish you could help me with is when I first came here into this industry, I started interviewing people, hey, what's going on? Who's who? And figuring out who the bad guys are, who the good guys are. And that's really the biggest part of going into a new industry, is especially if you have a lot of good ideas, is to figure out who the bad guys are. And the first thing I asked you was, hey man, you seem like a good guy. Can you keep me away from the bad guys? Because how would I know? The bad guys are attracted to great ideas. They grab them. So that was one of the things I needed to do, is stay away from the bad guys. But I see similar mistakes being made today, man. Like at $85,000, I don't understand. This was the question I would ask people. Hey, what's your cost base? And they would tell me, well, that's none of your business. I'm like, well, why is that relevant? I didn't ask you how much Bitcoin you had. What's your cost base? $300. I'm like, $300? Price is $47,000, man. Did you stop buying? See, I think that's a big, big mistake. I can't get my head around someone that has 1,000 Bitcoin at $300, why they wouldn't keep buying Bitcoin. Like, can you explain that to me? Because, okay, you got 1,000 Bitcoin at 300, you're worth 300 million. You could have been worth 3 billion.
Yeah.
Right. And your thesis all along was this is going to be worth $1 million. Why'd you stop buying? Like that to me, like, can we start there? How many times have you seen that phenomenon occur?
I mean, it actually has diminished over time because right in the beginning, no one had the strength of belief that it would get to where it is today. And so those that were involved, actually, I spoke at the first Bitcoin conference, and I'll go into my first mistake. I bought my first Bitcoin at that conference because I came from an ideological background that, I wanted to change banking, and I was involved in a monetary reform movement. And Bitcoin was, I was there with a mindset of, does this change banking? And so that was kind of my mindset at the time. But once I heard like the presentations of some of the cypherpunks and the people that were there, and it was all ideological. It was us versus the banks. It was the cypherpunks. It was the activists. It was, how are we going to transact peer-to-peer in a private way and be able to, exist outside the banking system? And so I bought my first Bitcoin at $3. And that was a physical Bitcoin. It was in a hologram, a Cassius type of coin. Later they came. My job was to figure out how to get it from the physical to a type of wallet. Oh, you were on mute, Gary. I can see you speaking.
Did you buy one? You bought a single Bitcoin for $3?
No, it had five Bitcoin on it. So it was about, $25 or whatever it was at the time. Yeah. And then I also wanted to buy it to figure out how to spend it. And so after the conference, there was a hackathon. And you had to go around Prague and find secret codes to find all these people in what can only be described as a crack den. And once you did the right knock at the right place, you ended up with a bunch of people, a few of them wearing hoodies and anonymous masks, and other people that were just, being themselves. And they hacked together a Bitcoin vending machine. And so I was able to scan the QR codes, and if I gave them a Bitcoin, they gave me a Mars bar. So that was my first mistake. I bought a Mars bar for one Bitcoin.
God.
To figure out how this thing works. Gary, I'm sure you're the same. I come from a mindset that you learn from mistakes. And so while these are all mistakes, these are the best ways of learning, because if you get it all perfectly, you don't learn shit and you don't do anything right anyway.
And that's why I wanted to do this, because all I hear on Spaces and YouTube is how brilliant people are. And they all pick the bottom. They all sell the top. It really irritates me because no one should expect any of that. You should not. You should compare yourself to me and Simon. We make mistakes all the freaking time, and that's the purpose of this. Share the mistakes that we make so other people don't have to make it. Simon looks like he froze up a little bit. He might have to come back in. Simon, you're locked up a little bit.
Yeah, this is the problem with being on an island. And I'm on Isle of Man, not Isle of Wight. Let's do some local marketing for the right island.
Sorry, man. Sorry. Let's see. Isle of Man. You're on the Isle of Man.
Everyone says that. Don't worry.
No, but it's an amateur mistake. That's not cool. Isle of Man, Isle of Wight. Give me a little geography lesson then.
Yeah, Isle of Man's like down at the bottom under England. This is like between Ireland up to the top, just off Liverpool, northern England. And then there's an island between, like, you can see Scotland, you can see England, and you can see Ireland from here.
Nice.
And we were actually the very first government in the world in 2014 to make Bitcoin legal tender, until the Bank of England shut the system down, because we share a clearing system with the Bank of England for the Manx pound. But that was the first attempt, and then the Bank of England said no.
Yeah. Okay, so back to mistakes. So, hey, let me ask you a question. Was trying to start the Freedom Bank a mistake?
It took me from a strong financial position, like, because I left investment banking, I had a good salary, I had a good job, I was financially strong, but actually deep in debt still. The more I earned, the more I got into debt for some reason.
How old were you, Simon?
This is, let
You're
me
in your
think,
late 20s?
2005. So I was about 25 or something at the time, 24, maybe younger. And yeah, I got myself just dire deep in debt to try and create this bank, only for the Bank of England to say, you can't build the bank the way you want it. And you have to build it on top of Barclays, and you're going to have to deposit 60 million in the Bank of England to get started. So yeah, I mean, it financially destroyed me. And I almost didn't go to the first Bitcoin conference because we didn't have the financial resources to do it. But you know, for whatever reason, we started the business with my wife, and she said, "Nah, we got to go." And she got our last bit of credit card debt, flew over from England to Prague, and we went there. There was something drawing us there for some reason.
Yeah, well, good on your wife, man. Good on having a wife that said, "Hey, man up, let's go. This is our journey."
Yeah,
that's a rare one. Good
and
on
unlike
you.
others, she was actually very insistent that we buy Bitcoin. So she was really driving. It wasn't like a fight between. I think some people have a wife where they don't want to buy Bitcoin and he's trying to explain Bitcoin. I was blessed not to have that. We were on the same page. We need to accumulate Bitcoin.
You know, I think that's a very large issue for many partnered groups around Bitcoin, is that they get their spouse involved who really doesn't understand anything about finance. And then, you know, you're now having to argue with another unconscious decision maker. And by that, I mean, I thought everybody was supposed to own a home. And then I realized 60 years later, well, nobody really owns a home. I had to learn that in England because I realized, oh, wow, the Queen can take your stuff anytime she wants, which means the U.S. government can take it too. So this whole housing thing is such a load of BS as far as in order to be a good family, you should own your home, yet no one really does. What it really means, to be a good family, you should be in debt right up your eyeballs and not really able to go on vacation, just be stuck in your home producing taxes for the government. Let's go back to mistakes.
I want to dig into that, Gary, because I can't tell you how the mindset shapes us. And I think this is really important for people to understand. So I was brought up like, you know, my dad was somebody that was obsessed with the subject of money. But he built a real estate empire. Well, not an empire. For him, it was, you know, he went from nothing, broke, you know, zero opportunity. Like, you know, his brothers were bus drivers, all that type of stuff. And he made his first million, but he did it all debt free. So he came from that background where if I want to do, you know, a real estate transaction, I have to figure out how to hustle and get the money together. And he'd go in London, he'd be involved in gambling, and then he'd hit the jackpot, and then he'd use that to reinvest. And so he came from that type of hustle, type of mindset. So he was always anti-debt, but he brought me up entrepreneurial. And so it was always like when I was a kid, you know, I remember when I was like 6 years old or something, he'd be like, right, Simon, you're not allowed any pocket money, but I'd like to give you some wages this week. What have you done to earn your money this week? And I'd be like, oh, Dad, can I go and wash the car or something like that? And he'd be like, right, yeah, you can get your wages, but you got to, you know, work this amount of hours. And he just always brought me up to work hard, earn everything, you know, because he didn't want me to have, even though he came from money, well, he didn't come from money. He came from nothing, made his money, and he was very paranoia that I was going to come from money. So he made me earn everything. And then he lost all his money in the stock market, which is what actually triggered my interest in trying to figure out where all his money went. But I want to tell you that he brought me up as an entrepreneurial person that always needs to earn their money. And I had that mindset. So I was always hustling, you know, washing cars, figuring out how to like trim someone's garden or anything I could do to kind of like justify and build a little business. I even remember like starting a magazine when I was like 11 years old, and also, I mean, this is I was bootlegging WWF videos, and I didn't realize it was illegal, and I was sending copies of these videos, not really knowing it was illegal. But I made my first 10 grand by the time I was 16.
Wow.
And so he brought me up. Now, suddenly, I got it in my mind that it would be a good idea to go to university. And my dad was really resistant to that. He was like, "What do you want? Why don't you just join the business? Let's build some properties together and stuff like that." And I don't know why, but for whatever reason, I resisted that. So then I went to university, which don't correct me, you know, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that whole experience of living away from home, meeting people, doing what you need to do. But it indoctrinated me into wanting a job. And so after 4 years of university, I went from an entrepreneur to an employee by mindset. And I got it in my mind that I need to work at an investment bank and get the top salary. Because I didn't go to the top university, I had to hustle my way up. So I got a job as a T-boy at a stockbroker. And a few years later, I was in market making and corporate finance in the city of London at an investment bank, you know, through hustle, as opposed to getting the right graduate scheme and stuff like that. But it indoctrinated a mindset. And then I was deep in debt from the student loan. And then while I was in the job, I was always keeping up with the Joneses. I was always, you know, drinking, trying to fit in with the culture, trying to have a better car, trying to figure out what's the fastest way of me getting a property so that I can, you know, attract the best girlfriend or whatever. You know, that mindset that led me to entrepreneur making money, to student in debt, working for somebody, getting more and more credit card to keep up with the Joneses, getting a bigger and bigger rental bill to try and make my property look, my real estate look better. And suddenly, you know, I had to unindoctrinate myself. And so when I met my wife, she's British, but her family's Bangladeshi. And so her family culture was all around save gold. And she saw like finance, not as debt, but as like peer-to-peer lending and community lending. And, you know, you borrow from each other within the family, and you save in gold. You know, debt is a bad thing. And she came from that culture. So as soon as I got back into that, and it's an entrepreneurial culture, when you come from a hustle where there's no jobs, you know, you're an entrepreneur because you have to be. There's nothing else.
Yeah, that's right.
You make money and that's it. And so she had that background from her parenting, although we were both British. I had that from mine. And she unindoctrinated me. And then we started to say, look, you're interested in all this banking stuff, but why don't we just stop trying to get governments and to change banks and politicians? Why don't we just build a bank? And that was really my father, and it went back to how my father brought me up, and how, you know, she was in a mindset where we got to get rid of this debt, we've got to save, and it was that combination of psychology that I think led to us finding Bitcoin, and then getting some of the right habits and making many of the wrong habits, which we'll go in. But I think that's useful that you brought that up, because it's all in the mind, it's psychology.
Yeah. I think it is really, really important to understand where you came from and your unconscious things that say, hey, you need to be a part of something. But if you really look at reality, being a part of the larger population of people are very similar to sheep. Okay. They normally don't make the right decision. That's just history. I'm not making anyone wrong or being judgmental. I just have to look through history and go, wow, man, if there's 1 million people all going off the mountain, I might want to go in a different direction. It just requires me to be alone for a little while and to actually ask myself what I believe in, not what my teacher, who, by the way, doesn't have 2 pennies to rub between themselves now that they're 80. They have nothing. And I don't even think they were teaching the right stuff. That's the really sad part, right? Like, it's not even good data. If you look at the stats of people coming out of school, I have never, ever had a problem competing with them. Not an MBA from Harvard, Brown, Cambridge, also didn't end up in jail. Like, I'm clean as this. I did business in the UK. I figured out a way to make myself useful. I can make myself useful everywhere. In fact, I came into this industry, which looked at me as, oh, wow, the suits are coming. This is what you guys were calling me, the suits. I'm like, oh, wow, my suit? That's cool. I never heard that term before. But it was like, you're a suit, you're an enemy. You and I think, really kind of connected when I started saying this thing about, look, don't exchange your time for a salary, man. Don't be a prostitute, right? Like, look at this whole thing differently. One, if this is the correct thesis, it's a thesis where you don't Tiny Tim into it. You actually ape into this thing in a big way. This thing about only buying 1,000 Bitcoin at $30 when you could have, and then you see the price run up for the next 10 years and you're still at $300. I got to tell you, man, I fell in love with you when you, hey, I'm just buying more Bitcoin tomorrow. I'm like, man, that cat, I don't know what his weighted average is, but like that's the right buyer, right? I don't hear Max saying that. I hear Sailor saying it. Doesn't even care what the number is. So I think Sailor's one of the great Bitcoiners, man. Don't care what the number is, dude. Just keep giving it to me. He understands at least that core principle of supply and demand. I'm about twice your age, dude. I've never seen a scenario like this. And I think people are making colossal mistakes. Like buying homes. Yeah, you and I have great home stories. Right? Why don't you go first? Your story is worse than mine.
I'll go through that one, but let's finish off that loop. So the first thing that I got really right was I set up the most simple strategy, which was I didn't have 2 pennies to rub together. I didn't have much money, but I had enough hustle to figure out how to earn income. And I got out of the debt the job and the debt mindset. And then I set myself a simple principle. I've got all of this debt. And if I sit there and figure out how long it's going to take me to get out of this debt with all this interest rate, firstly, I've got to get rid of this mortgage that I somehow jumped into. It's killing me. It's eating me alive. I've got to get rid of that, even if it involves having a loss. But I'm not, when I did the maths, I'm not going to get out of debt by working for the next 20 years. I've got to own more Bitcoin this month than the previous month. And that's the first rule. And we stuck to that principle. That was a combination of my mindset, my wife's mindset, and us both being on the same page around this. And so that very simple principle saved me from all of the mistakes that I made after that. Because no matter what mistake I made, it was always, have I got more Bitcoin this month or have I got less Bitcoin? And that taught me the lesson of denominate your wealth and value your wealth in Bitcoin, not dollars. That's a massive psychological shift that everyone needs to go through.
It's almost like an earthquake trigger. Once you pass that Rubicon, that little point, you don't look at it differently.
Because then you're like, well, all I need to do, and again, the reason that Michael Saylor is so brilliant at what he does is because he knows how to play the fiat to Bitcoin game in a corporate environment, and he knows how to articulate that for people, and he knows how to articulate that for a government. And so, he kind of has got a million ways of saying, how do you play the fiat game and how do you play the Bitcoin game, and trying to get people, on there. But once you value your wealth in Bitcoin and not dollars, you look forward to price corrections and price crashes, because my job is to earn as much fiat as I can, however I can, and then whatever's left after my expenses, I'm going to be saving it in Bitcoin. I'm not going to be investing in Bitcoin. I'm going to be saving it in Bitcoin. And so the lower the price of Bitcoin and the more fiat currency I can earn, the more Bitcoin wealth I'm going to accumulate. And I'm going to ignore whatever the dollar value is. I'm going to ignore what happens to the price. But in fact, I'm going to celebrate when the price comes down because that's going to give me more Bitcoin that month than if the price was going up.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it is simple. What I've had to learn is to that point, any 20 to 30% retracement off of any number, the very high number, the 109 number, or if we had a retracement of 20% off of 80 grand, I am moving into buying Bitcoin. I don't care whatever everything else is doing. I'm like, dude, if I can buy 109 minus 25%, I'm going to buy some Bitcoin. Because what I do is this is where you and I really kind of melt. Because I kept saying, hey, this is BS, dude. 40 grand that you guys can't go out there and buy one Bitcoin. I don't believe the 1/10 of a Bitcoin. I have $30,000 worth of projects here at my house alone that I'll pay cash for. Somebody's got to be willing to show up in a truck and do some work. Okay? Do not tell me you can't buy. Now, a year later, hey, now you got to do double the work.
Yeah. And there's a million businesses all around the world that are willing to pay someone to figure out AI for them, and they'll pay you good dollars for that right now.
I would hire 2 people right now, dude. Okay, and they get some ups on it too. I mean, and they're going to learn. But does anybody show up? People should be lined up at my house saying, "Hey, let me come work for you. Yeah. I'll make it so easy for you." Right?
Yeah. So all somebody needs to do right now is say, "Look, I've done here's 15 to 20 different AI things that you can do in your business that I've done for someone else. Here's my price. I'll get it all done for you. I'll work with your team. If you can give me a credible pitch on that, you're going to be hired." And every business in the world is looking for that person right now. And all you need to do is figure it out. And then you can buy your Bitcoin with that once you figured it out. And that's what everybody should be doing right now, because every business in the world has that problem.
Yeah. And or any other way. I mean, there are a lot of ways to make money. Go to California right now. You want to make a bunch of money? Go to California and do some work. I think this is a major mistake. A major mistake is a 18-year-old kid or a 60-year-old lady saying, well, I don't have any money. I can't buy Bitcoin. One, if you're not working 14-hour days and you're healthy, you have potential money that you're not choosing to go work for, grab, fish, net, and then deploy into Bitcoin. The other thing, if you don't want to work, is look at your assets that aren't working for you. Your house, your car, your Rolex watch, that thing somebody gave you 30 years ago that's going to turn into dust one day. Like there are so many assets sitting around. We'll wait for Simon to come back. There's so many assets sitting around doing little to nothing. I have a Range Rover, 6-year-old Range Rover. I got 2 of them. I mean, I don't need both of them, right? I could sell one of them and buy some Bitcoin. I had a house down the street that I paid, I think $1.7 million for. I sold it at a $300,000 discount. Why did I do that? Because the house wasn't moving. If a house isn't moving, it's because the price is wrong. I changed the price by 300 grand and sold it within 10 days. People laughed at me because I destroyed the market in the neighborhood, but I then deployed it at 60 grand. That trade, I had never made money on that house in 3 years. Okay. In 6 months, I've made 60,000. I bought 35 Bitcoin. I've made $1 million on that house, man. I made $1 million on that house in first 6 months. I got rid of it. In 3 years, I had nothing but, okay, I got to pay the mortgage. I got to pay the interest. I've got to clean the yard. I've got to deal with the hurricane. I've got to deal with the insurance. I've got to deal with the damage of the insurance. By the way, 2 hurricanes hit it, right? They're right now redoing their entire yard. I sold it to them like 2 weeks before the hurricane. Their entire yard's been redone. They lost all their trees. It's a train wreck. Okay. So you cannot convince me that owning a home is a good investment. Okay. I don't even think it's a good investment for the family because the husband spends most of his time on Saturdays and Sundays when he should be spending time with his family cleaning a roof. And when you married the guy, he was not a roof cleaner. So I don't really get it. It's really, to me, Bitcoin in this conversation, if you come back to me, this conversation is the most important conversation to have because the mistakes that are being made. I think the greatest book about Bitcoin, the most interesting book and maybe a movie is going to be on the trillions of dollars that have been lost. See if I can get you back in here. That have been lost, squandered, given away to do some other thing, whether it's build a business, build a token, build a private equity business. I mean, I'm looking at private equity deals now because that's all I've ever done my whole life. Man, it's hard to say yes to any of them anymore.
Yeah,
it is.
I was hearing you all along, Gary. So that's good. I don't know what happened there, but
so what I was trying to get to was when you doing Bitcoin, I've had a great return on Bitcoin. Like I could easily go, hey, this is a triple, dude. Triple on size. Maybe I should get out and start building some companies, but I have enough experience to go, whoa, wait, big boy. I have an investment in Bitcoin that is better than private equity. It's better than NVIDIA because I have no human error risk. I have no CEO risk. I have no key man risk. I have no insurance risk. I have no HR risk. I hate HR. As soon as HR gets involved in the business, I think you should sell it because they end up running the bloody thing. No key man risk, no regulatory risk, no DOJ risk. By the way, every time I build a business, I get attacked because it gets big. I mean, I get attacked aggressively, man. $7 million in legal fees to lawyers over a FTC suit that took me 3.5 years to deal with. That would never happen in Bitcoin, man. I'd just be like, hey, man, I got my Bitcoin. See you later. Blow off. Leave me alone. No CEO to contact. I am really having a hard time coming up with how this isn't the greatest opportunity in 2025. We're still early, bro. This is so early. Adoption is stupid.
Yeah, agreed. And, I'm sure Gary will testify to this too as well. As you get older, your hustle and your energy kind of diminishes a little bit. I think your hunger's still there, but it takes more to get it back. Like the energy that I had when I was young, like, the amount, the capacity to bring in, work hard, do whatever it takes, be willing to fail. There is a peak age for that. And while we could focus on everything that's fucked up about being born into today's world, it's going to be harder than ever to get real estate. It's going to be, the inflation is just significantly different from someone that was born in a boomer that got the whole upside of the Fed and everything. However, you got to look at what is unique today in my current environment while I'm at my age. And what is unique today is that you're alive during Bitcoin. That's a once in a generation thing. The traditional financial system is off the scale in terms of no one knowing what the next 10 years look like. Like, you got the smartest people in the room. I mean, I've got a theory. Gary's got a theory. All the people that we hang around on Spaces have got a theory, and none of them are the same theory. And these are people, that dedicate that. I've dedicated 25 years of my life to doing nothing but studying and understanding money. And my theory is not the same as everyone else's. So no one knows what the next 10 years look like. And you've got this technological innovation whereby a person on their own can figure out AI and do what 200 people needed to do a few decades ago. Like, so you got to look at what is happening today and how do I fit myself into that to earn as much fiat currency as possible, to save as much Bitcoin as possible. And that's the game that everyone should be playing over the next decade. Because after a decade, I don't think any of us know, but I do know that Bitcoin solves all the major problems. Like, I want less counterparty. I want less headaches. I want the ability to transact from peer to peer anywhere in the world. I want to be able to take my wealth from where I am right now. If my government fucks it up, I want to take it to the next government I'm going to live with. And I want to know that the monetary policy is never going to change. I want to know that it's going to be, pretty much the same as what I'm investing in right now. And I want to know that there is, I don't need to worry about if that person gets assassinated. I don't need to worry about if that person gets mentally ill and makes really stupid decisions. I don't need to worry about, any kind of pre-mine of changing an economic model or, key person risk and all those things. And there isn't anything else like that. And I also want to have it where I can own it myself and also hedge, like an inheritance plan, have some custody, all of these things. If you just focused on that, then you are alive at the most interesting time today. While everyone else that's not doing that, I'm scared for them. I am genuinely scared for them. Me and Gary spend as much time as we can trying to help people understand and the dark world, the good world, and you just need to come over here and get away from there. And you'll be fine. You can help more people do the same. And this is absolute radical change. Radical change.
Yeah, it most certainly is. I want to go back and just defend the age thing real quickly. I do think you're right. As you get older, your energy, I most certainly don't have the energy of a 17-year-old. However, I'm also no longer a BB gun with endless BBs to shoot. I am a high-powered sniper with flawless equipment. I now choose to use this equipment in a way that's suitable for the equipment. I don't use a 50 caliber weapon to shoot a squirrel. And so my time has become actually really valuable to me. People are teasing me a little bit. Hey, you're spending a lot of time on X. The time that when the universe gives me the opportunity without any censorship to communicate a meaningful message to help other people, I personally don't know anything I could be doing more important. I'm neutral. All my positions are very well known to people. I like freedom. I don't like regulators interfering. I don't like governments intervening. In my lifetime, I have never lived in a market that's really fair or open or free. It's been closed, shut down, regulated, managed, intervened with. And that is exactly why Bitcoin is an awesome solution for an anarchist, a revolutionary like me. Maybe if I'm going to have to get put in a bucket, I choose not to be vanilla. I choose not to be a sheep. I would rather be a total anarchist. Throw me in prison. Let's rock and roll. At least my name will be in a history book one day. And hey, the guy stood up for what he believed in. I would rather go down that way than being a subject of, man, I sure hope my 401k does well at retirement. And this is like 30 people for every one of me that I've grew up with in careers. They literally were always interested in their 401k. And I had never thought about my 401k, man. I was like, I want to live my life. Who cares about the 401k? Like who cares about the 401k? I have never believed the government or anyone was going to take care of me, man. Why would I believe that? Right? My dad died when I was 9. Nobody did anything. My brother died when I was 20. Nobody did anything. They didn't save anything. People went to war. They got killed. Then we treated them like shit when they come back here. I mean, all you got to do is look around and go, the people that are sheep do not get served well, except on a plate to somebody else. That's what sheep end up doing, right? They end up feeding wealthy people lamb. So that's probably a horrible analogy. I don't know why I went there, but I would much rather be free. I mean, Bitcoin for me, it's freedom money. It's a bizarre freedom money because it's helping me escape gravity, man. I actually think Bitcoin's giving me a hedge over all those guys that had fancy names and they were all connected from their families, right? I'm having to do less work if I have to even compete with anyone. The truth is, I don't even compete with anyone anymore. I'm not competing with you, man. Okay, like why would you and I aren't in competition? You and I are in this, like, we're sitting on top of the whipping cream, going, "Hey, isn't this wonderful? Why is everybody freaking out?" And the only people freaking out, they're sitting in the soup of the problem. And they're not saying anything about it. They're just sitting there, man. I mean, we got 2,000 people. If 2,000 people just decide, I'm not paying my taxes, fuck this. I'm not going to kill people anymore. My taxes are being used to kill people. Like if everybody just stopped, said, hey, we want a new system. There's 8 billion people on this planet, man. So that's why I'm doing this. And I think that's why you're doing this. And if I was still on the fiat system, begging for my salary, I could not do this. Oh, by the way, my employer wouldn't even let me do it. And even if I'm not working for an employer, if I have a partner who's part of the system, she won't want me to do it because she's like, man, you're going to offend some people. Oh, yes, I am. I am going to offend some people.
Yeah. And that is what Bitcoin is. It's, I think people for the next 10 years, let's just talk about the next 10 years. If everyone had a plan, and this is, there's these cheesy quotes that are just really true. Most people completely overestimate what they can achieve in the next year and underestimate what they can achieve in the next 10 years. If every single person says, right, here's my 10-year plan, every single month I will own more Bitcoin than the previous month, and I'm going to earn as much fiat currency every month to increase that number. If everyone did that for 10 years, I have zero worry about you. The people that aren't doing that, I have a lot of concerns for because this is radical change. And Bitcoin allows anyone to be able to do that. It takes massive mental strength, which is why we're going to go through the mistakes, because there's always someone that's going to tell you, while you're the idiot that bought Bitcoin at the top, they're always going to tell you why Bitcoin's going to fail. And they're always going to give you a reason why someone else is going to end up buying your Bitcoin that is more convicted in this. And it takes time to get that conviction. But it is the freedom money that is needed. It is the, I never, in my business, I never needed a venture capitalist because we had Bitcoin treasury. In my personal life, I took strategic times to pay off my debt because I didn't want the bank to have any claim over me. I bought my house outright because, and some people will say this is a bad decision, and we can go into these decisions. But for me, it was the freedom that I needed to know that no one can take my house away no matter what. And Bitcoin is that. No central bank can change the game. No government can stop me from transacting. And no bank can tell me whether I've got my money or not. It's not somebody else's liability. You combine all of those three things with some good financial planning, some good strategic hedging, and everyone can do that over the next 10 years. But why won't they? Because they're trying to figure out how to do it in the next year, and they end up buying a shitcoin to try and shortcut the process. But I think the next we could call it a mistake or not, but my mindset said once I 100x'd Bitcoin and I was, ending up with more Bitcoin each month, I'm at $300 Bitcoin. And my father still has a mortgage. I consider my father like my spiritual guidance that got me into this, because his story became my story. And, he was the one that built me the mindset that put me in the direction that I ended up on. And I didn't want him to have a mortgage. And so I decided $300, Dad, I'm going to pay off your mortgage. That's done. All of that debt that I had to kind of play around with because I needed to pay myself first to save in Bitcoin. all right, I'm going to wipe that out. It's a percentage of the Bitcoin. And so I decided, at 100x, at $300 a Bitcoin, I'll wipe out my dad's debt. I'll wipe out my personal debt. I'm done. I don't owe anyone anything. And I'm free. But was that freedom worth it? What was the mental calculation? For me, it was a mindset of freedom. But I did a Bitcoin pizza. I'm Bitcoin pizza guy for those $300 Bitcoin. So the point is that Bitcoin drives you when the value of your money goes up. It drives you into really making the important calculations. What am I really doing here? Should I be investing in that? Should I be paying off that? How long is my time frame here? And it drives you into the exact types of behavior that the fiat currency debt-based system took out of you when you were indoctrinated in university. Get a good job, take a credit card, get a mortgage, leverage as much debt as possible, and leverage the debt scheme. This is kind of reversing that. It's kind of like, here's the Keynesian model that we were taught in economics. I studied economics. And here's the Austrian model: hard money, time preference changes, sound decisions, not malinvestment. Whereas this one's always driving you to how to become, the people that win this game are the banks that get to create the money. The large corporation that can borrow at 0% on QE, they're the ones that win that game. And everyone else is trying to figure out how they can be the product for the banks that are winning the game, and then trying to figure out how to beat inflation by leveraging and building contacts to the bank. So I decided I'm going to exit that world and I'm going to live in the hard money world from now on. And from that moment, even though I sold a bunch of them at $300, from that moment, I was out of fiat and I was into hard money and hard money only.
Now, the difference, though, is when you were off camera, I talked about the house down the street that I sold, reduced the price of it, smashed it. I mean, just what's it going to take to dump it? About, I think, $60,000 Bitcoin. That was less than 6 months ago. I never made a penny on that house, man. I mean, it was on my balance sheet. It's worth $3 million, even though I have 1.7 of debt. I can't sell it for $3 million, but we're going to put it on $3 million, and I'm paying interest, and hurricanes come by. And then I said, shit, let me just dump this thing. This is never going to make any money. It's only going to take energy from me. Every time I drove by it, I'm like, man, I need to fix the roof. I need to fix this, weighing on me. See, if my mind is just wide open, clear, and I don't have any of this bullshit weighing on me, I can actually create the future. I can imagine, I can manifest, like you say. We are manifesting Bitcoin into this reality. I choose to believe that. I'm going to manifest freedom money into this reality in my lifetime. Didn't think it was going to happen on my watch, by the way. This is happening, dude. This is literally I don't think any of you guys knew how quick this was going to happen. I think everybody's a little like, wow, this is actually happening now. From my experience in the energy space, no one, and I do mean no one, understands the implications of this. It's going to be far, far bigger. When in 10 years, this will be so much bigger than we're thinking about right now. We can't even imagine the disruption. This won't stop, right? Until every arbitrage is eked out of the system. That's what Bitcoin looks for. And what me and Simon are actually talking about right now is the arbitrage that Bitcoin's just going to seek out like a honing pigeon. It's going to seek out the biggest, fattest margins that are being exploited by other people, but they're not doing very much. So let's think about an example, because I have so many examples I can tell you it's ridiculous, like buying miners. Okay, let me go with mine first, because I want to hear about one of yours. Not your problems, but one of your buddies that had 10,000 Bitcoin and today he's got 200, right? Those kind of stories. My story is I'm looking at the miners. I've got a bunch of money stuck in fiat. I cannot buy Bitcoin. Didn't really understand MicroStrategy, even though I think mining and farming is a horrible business. I go and put $1 million into 4 miners. They're all down 60%, dude. Now I did this at $50,000 Bitcoin. So I am now near zero my investment. My investment of $1 million, had it gone into Bitcoin, I should have just done the extra $10,000 worth of work. If I'd have stuck it in Bitcoin at 50 grand, well, that money would be doubled now. Instead, I've lost 60% of the value. That is 100% loss. Now, it's opportunity loss, but it also takes me more time to think about those. And then I got to think about, ooh, what's unrealized gain? What's the unrealized losses? I don't have any of that shit with Bitcoin because I'm not going to sell it. I might lean against it, but I'm most certainly not going to sell the Bitcoin for anything. I don't sell Bitcoin for anything. And if I need money, I go build fiat to spend the money. But I am not going to spend my once in a lifetime Bentley built for me, customized for me, for a bag of potato chips that can be replicated 1,000 times over. Right? That for me is a major mistake. And I think a lot of people have made mistakes like that and are continuing to make them.
Yeah. So my next major thing is that I wanted to create a Bitcoin machine. So once I got Bitcoin and we got Bitcoin, we decided, let's take the business where we were trying to create a bank, and let's build the whole business around Bitcoin. So we started attracting investors that wanted to invest in Bitcoin companies. We started to network with all the different Bitcoin companies. We did early funding rounds for like Coinbase, Kraken, Bitstamp, Bitfinex, Circle, Ripple Labs, like all these different companies that were trying to do stuff at the time. And we also, while we were waiting for our licenses, we just created a bunch of unregulated products that we could sell to people that wanted to get involved in the Bitcoin ecosystem. And one of them was we built a Bitcoin mining backed security. So I wanted to learn the mining industry. And we built out a mining farm in Iceland. We worked with people that were experienced in the field. We built a security that would pay everyone Bitcoin every single day. We started to create like VC funds where we would buy Bitcoin, we would combine it with shares in these different companies, and then we would have some investment in mining. And the moral of the story of that, and we got, a lot of people really, we created a Bitcoin bond. We really just started building financial products around that, around about the 2013 to 2015 era. Because most people weren't in Bitcoin, they ended up with loads of Bitcoin. And so we were paying, at one point, some people were getting like a Bitcoin every day from this mining.
Wow.
And they'd made some fiat investments. And there were some people that, and we've still got this, I don't need to reveal who they are, because we've got about 170,000 investors that, that were investing from very early to today. But some of them, like we got people that lost their 2FA, got locked out of their account and never did anything. And then like sometimes they come back like a decade later and they're like, hey, what happened to my account? Like, can you sort out my 2FA? I lost my phone and stuff. And I always look at these stories because my support team will always share with us, hey, have you seen this guy? He did nothing. And he sat on this mountain of Bitcoin and he did nothing. And he's one of the highest portfolio values on the platform, just because he did nothing and he just got back on with his job. Now, others, they were logging in, they were active, they were always finding the next deal to invest into. They were trying to time the market. And some of those, if they had just bought Bitcoin and did nothing, they'd be one of the highest value investors on our platform. But they're still, in fact, in a worse position than if they just bought Bitcoin. Now, some people invested their Bitcoin into these deals and ended up with less Bitcoin. Others, they just took their fiat currency, invested in this deal and ended up with a shitload of Bitcoin And because they were locked out, they didn't have all the bad habits of trying to decide when to buy, when to sell, and all that stuff. And so of the investors through our platform, we've got a list of all the highest value accounts. The highest value accounts were some people, average Joe, that invested a chunk of fiat, got locked out of their account.
Zero activity.
Still has their Bitcoin today.
There was a study done, I think it was on Fidelity, and the study basically said, hey, what is the most well-performing portion of our portfolio? They went and grabbed it. Of course, these algos can grab, any filtering data you want now. And it was interesting that the greatest performing funds inside of Fidelity were with dead holders. People who had been dead, didn't touch it. The account's not been messed with in any way. It was just allowed to work. And this is one of the beautiful things I love about Bitcoin, man. Once you really understand, it only takes 25 hours to get your nose into this thing. I've never seen anyone, here's another mistake, never seen anyone not spend 26 hours that spent 25 hours studying this. I have never seen one person poo-poo Bitcoin who could validate that they spent 25 hours. Peter Schiff has not spent 25 hours on Bitcoin, nor has my twin brother. Okay, going in spaces, you need to read some stuff, man. You need to actually sit down and read and understand what this is and do exactly what you said, which is get rid of some of the baggage you carry. These are cool mistakes not to have to replicate. I see these guys chasing all these XRPs and stuff. I mean, I made a comment last night. I'm like, man, I could buy a lot more XRP than I could Bitcoin, if I'm the US Treasury, just because it's cheaper. That's not the point of how much I can buy it. The point is, what am I buying, man? Like, I wouldn't go buy diamonds today, right? Diamonds, people realize now you can make a 10-carat perfect diamond synthetically. You don't need to pay De Beers for it, right? Technology is impacting everything. I don't see how technology is going to impact Bitcoin. In fact, I think technology is going to need Bitcoin for the future digital planet that we're moving into, which we're moving into. And the neocons, I don't care how brilliant they are, but they didn't expect 3,000 billionaires on planet Earth. This is a different deal. Only 16 billionaires are in Bitcoin. I did this research the other day, dude. There's only two, Elon and Saylor, who are in the top 20. Two Bitcoiners. We're talking about
outside of Bitcoin, yeah.
We're talking about Bill Gates. Only two in the top 20, and only 16 well-known Bitcoiners in the entire 3,500 billionaires. And an average billionaire in that bucket is $5.5 billion in size.
Wow. So I'll give you another mistake. And I'm still making this one today. So I invested in the Ethereum ICO. And I still got that ETH. I still have that ETH. And we started.
What did that ETH cost you in the beginning? Penny?
So it was 2,000 ETH for one Bitcoin, if I remember correctly.
Wow.
Now it outperformed Bitcoin significantly. So it was a good investment. Then I watch Ethereum get rid of the key asset that it had because there's a key person risk. And this key person that was lobbied by Larry Fink to say ESG is important. And if you get the price of mining down and focus on climate change, then you can switch and pivot to proof of work, even though you had the second most important proof of work network. So I knew that was a ridiculous mistake. I knew that Ethereum's not Bitcoin at some point, but you did really well. It was a good investment. I knew that giving up on the proof of work was actually like a major mistake. And so it shifted to proof of stake, but I still didn't convert it into Bitcoin because in my mind it was, this is a hedge in case I'm completely wrong about Bitcoin and this Ethereum supercomputer thing becomes. It wasn't that I believed that was going to happen. I was just like, well, what if that does happen? Then at least I'm okay, you know. And I've still got that ETH today. And for the last 3 years, I've just sat there watching it get ripped by Bitcoin.
Correct.
Thinking, shall I convert some of that into Bitcoin? And what was my mistake is, right, Bitcoin doesn't generate me income, but I can stake ETH. I can stake ETH and get some income. And in my mind, I'm thinking of it like, this is growing and I don't want to sell it. And this is producing income for me, so I can convert the income. So I stake the ETH and I convert it into Bitcoin. But it's a disease. It's a mental disease in my mind, because I'm thinking, okay, this is a hedge, is bleeding value relative to Bitcoin. I'm earning income, but if I just converted it into Bitcoin, I'd have a lot more Bitcoin. And so you end up with these mental gymnastics. And still to this day, I'm thinking, right, this may, you know, I've still got all of this ETH that has been bleeding relative to Bitcoin. And I'm just going to stay there for some reason. I'm not going to convert it all into Bitcoin. So you still have these mental gymnastics that people play.
Why do you think that happens? Because I do that too. I get into a trade and I'm like, it's almost inertia, you know? It's almost like, maybe it's an ego going, hey, I don't want to make the decision, but in my case, I mean, I would just be taking a loss that I get to account later down the road. It's not a big deal. I mean, I already know it's been a dog. You know it's a dog deal. Why do you hold on to it? Why do we do this to ourselves?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you study behavioral finance, like, you know, our mental minds, like being a good trader, our minds are not equipped for that. Like, is probably the complete opposite of everything that makes logical sense to you in the real world. Like, you have to be able to cut your losses. You have to emotionally disconnect. You need to be wrong. You know, a great trader is wrong half the time, right half the time. And then they make small losses, but then they ride their profits and stuff. You have to be on it all the time. And, you know, I'm just not interested in looking at a chart all day or any of that stuff. That's just a waste of a life to me. Like, maybe some people enjoy that. I don't enjoy that at all. You know, and so, you know, all of the things, you know, not wanting to cut a loss, believing that it's going to turn around, trying to get the market timing. But the cancer of trading is a mind cancer. And so the second you step outside of fiat and Bitcoin, you end up in this absolute shit show of decision-making process of what's the price of Bitcoin relative to ETH, what's happening here, what's the next thing. And it's just an absolute cancer that drives you into taking the most amazing, peaceful mindset and having to become like a shitcoin trader, which is so counterintuitive to the value you could actually bring to the world. And not only that, it tends to drive you into scamming other people because you're stuck in a narrative that you're trying to justify. And suddenly you're giving all sorts of bullshit to other people. And it's driving you into, you know, losing your reputation. Like, we know people, I'm not going to mention them, but we know people that had a great Bitcoin reputation, was, you know, doing lots of stuff in Bitcoin, and then suddenly, like, just flipped it into launching meme coins, and just entered into this merry-go-round of distraction into a community that were just outside of the Bitcoin side, and just quite frankly lost reputation, lost a load of people money, and then have to deal with the mental gymnastics. And throughout my whole career, I've been involved because I was there when it was just Bitcoin. I went through the Litecoin, the meme coins, the peer coins, the NFTs, the ICOs, the Bitcoin Cashes, the Bitcoin SVs. And every time you end up further down this merry-go-round of distraction, you end up in just a complete, deciding, should I be launching a token? And I've been around all those. When you invest in 100 different companies in this sector, they all consider, hey, I can't even sell in 2017, they were like, I can't even sell my equity right now. No one will buy my shares because they all want me to create a pump and dump scheme token. And they were raising the companies that just wanted equity, they couldn't sell their shares. But if you were engaged in an ICO, you could make 50 million in 2 weeks. But then you've got you've got the reputational problem of what comes with that, being the CEO of a coin that is no economics solves it. Nothing solves it. No correct design. Because the reason that Bitcoin is because it was launched in this way at the time that it was launched, by a group of people that are not connected to the project. And just organically had this cypherpunk ideology that converted into, creating this $1 billion asset, this $100 billion asset, this $1 trillion asset that just brought new and new people in every time. And nothing competes with Bitcoin. You will never find another Bitcoin. This only happens once. It's not happening again. And it takes a lot. It takes that 25 hours of study or whatever hours of study it gets for you to realize that, and all the school of hard knocks that we need to go through. You can either listen to us or you can try it, but I guarantee you'll end up in the same place. And some people end up with no Bitcoin and exiting it, thinking it's a scam because they came straight into meme coins. Others can't make the distinction between Bitcoin and crypto, and others just end up with a lot less, and then they end up rebuilding, and that's fine.
How many people do you think have made, real life-changing money in the last 15 years from crypto that actually kept it, and they're not going insane? They're not,
the token issuers. The people that were...
I have so many people that want me to do a token. I'm like, dude, why would I do a token? I'm going to destroy my name. You can't manage these tokens, okay? There's a liquidity problem. You guys don't understand markets. I don't care how good the damn token is, okay? It's a liquidity problem. When people come to sell this shit, there's never enough buyers because there's no multiple players that are going, hey, I'm going to muffle when the sellers come in. I'm going to be there to backstop this thing. Can't control 80% of the supply when it shows up for the market. It's insane, man. I don't understand what these people think they're doing. I don't care about the guys that get rich. It's the little lady that invests in these things and my God, what were you thinking, man?
Yeah, and that unit bias is a major, major problem. Not thinking that Bitcoin is too expensive, rather than understanding you can have $10 of Bitcoin or $100 of Bitcoin or $1,000 of Bitcoin. And then therefore using that mind virus, that COVID, you've been injected with some crazy ass shit. Your mind is not set up correctly. It is completely illogical. It does not matter what the price of Bitcoin is. You have fiat currency today, and that buys you some Bitcoin. And in the future, if you keep doing that, historically, can't tell you what the future is, but historically, you end up with more economic power than if you had put it in any other asset. It's outperformed. If you do that every month for 4 years, every single person in the world that has done that is more economically powerful than anyone that backed George Soros, put it into gold, bought a bunch of real estate, created a business, got invested in the best mutual fund in the world, got all the right moves in the bond market, the stock market, predicted everything correctly. If all you did, and everyone can do it, is say, I will buy whatever with my fiat currency, whatever I've got left over after spending. I buy as much Bitcoin as is available, whether that's 0.00001 Bitcoin. I'll just buy as much Bitcoin as is available. and I'll do that every month and end up with more Bitcoin this month than the previous month. And I'll do it every month for the next 4 years. And if my purchasing power increases, I get to buy, more. Every single person in the world that has done that has outperformed every smart person, the best business people out of everybody. It is the great equalizer. Anybody can do that. And you have most likely and historically outperform the most smartest of intelligent people in the world. And you don't have to be smart to do that. You just got to actually do it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I know very few people that can't find $500 a month to deploy. And it's mind-boggling me. Hey, I'm going to go buy XRP with $500. $500 of XRP is the same as $500 of Bitcoin. It's just a different number of units. But like, why would you buy a Volkswagen? Why would you buy a copy of a Picasso because it's 10 cents when you could buy a part of the Picasso? Like, I don't get it. I'd rather $800 in my Picasso at $800 million valuation versus me having a lithograph of a Picasso that says this is not Bitcoin, right? And I'm gonna pay. Anyway, I don't want a copy, dude. Like, this is This is the problem with Americans. Okay, you guys are so used to buying copies, you don't care anymore about anything that's valuable. We have completely lost the definition of value and smashed it in and said, hey, this is quantifiable. Value is not quantifiable. It is not. Value is
I don't think that's an American problem. That's a global problem. That's a human problem. Wherever you are from, people still have this mind virus of, and the reason is because it makes sense in the real world. In the real world, you want to buy, you want to buy things for the best price you can possibly get. Now, some people are like, well, I believe if I pay the most, I get the highest quality. Most people are like, well, I'm trying to, I'm trying to get the best price possible. But there is no substitute for Bitcoin, and that's the most important thing. There is no cheaper Bitcoin. The cheaper Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, doesn't work. The cheaper Bitcoin, Bitcoin SV, doesn't work. The cheaper Bitcoin that is cheaper, faster, better, more is always more centralized, is always connected to human risk. It always has something that that you can't factor into the equation, that as a newbie, you're not sophisticated enough to understand yet. And even if you do become more sophisticated, imagine if you just channeled all that energy into figuring out how to earn fiat currency and buy Bitcoin. Simple. Like, we need more simplicity. And that is the beauty of Bitcoin. It actually, the opportunity of Bitcoin is not, in fact, understanding something that people don't know. It is actually having a 10-year plan that could give you what I have today, which I would want for everybody, where I can talk about the craziest ass political shit that people might want to shoot me for my opinion on, but I don't give a shit because my business is not dependent upon any VC that can tell me what to do. My job is not dependent upon any person that can tell me what to do. And even if I, do all sorts of crazy, stupid mistakes, I know that I've got intergenerational wealth. And even if I make those stupid mistakes, I've already just done this simple thing that anyone else can do. And this is not unique to me. And people will say to me, yeah, Simon, you got in early. Okay, there's a relative amount of truth to that. But I know a guy, and I won't mention his name, that was at the same Bitcoin conference. He invited me to speak at that same Bitcoin conference in 2011. He taught me about Bitcoin. And today, he has less Bitcoin and less dollar wealth today than he did when I first met him, despite being involved in the highest performing asset class in history.
What's his mind like right now, man? I mean, where is he at spiritually, Like, because I think you're going to see people that have been, see, for me, people go, hey, why? Like my brother thinks I'm a little wacky because I'm so heavy into this thing. But I'm the kind of guy that once I have a thesis and really understand something, like I ain't going to trade against this. This is the greatest thesis I've ever had in my life, man. It has 0 holes in it. 0 freaking holes in it. I mean, I have yet to find a hole, and I know how to look for this stuff. Why wouldn't I want to be 86, 90% in? Like I think I think people are not allocating properly here, man. And I can tell because all these experts that I show up with on X and YouTube and wherever, I noticed it 2 or 3 weeks ago when the tariff stuff started. I'm just making this up because just as a recent observation, I start seeing people that I think are extremely heavy Bitcoiners freak out about the tariffs. And I'm like, why are you freaking out, dude? This doesn't bother me at all. In fact, it's allowing me to buy $75,000 Bitcoin. I like this show. I like this circus, right? The circus noise is not going to affect my Bitcoin long term. And I think these people are still long a shitload of equities, dude. That's why they're half in and half out, or a third in and 2/3 in. They're going to wake up one
close
morning.
that loop, Gary, on where he actually is right now, and I
Yeah.
won't mention him for a reason.
Yeah, of course.
I won't mention him for a reason, because he lives in a squat. He's dependent upon drugs, and he's contributing to trying to create something better than Bitcoin. That's a tragedy. That's an absolute tragedy. And he was right in the right place at the exact right time with the exact right thesis for the exact right reason, ahead of everybody else. And that was his outcome, simply because he didn't have what we're trying to cover today. He didn't do what we're trying to say today. He didn't have that. And you today, if you've got no Bitcoin, and you just implement what we learned today, you have that 10-year plan, I think you're going to be the same person that is fighting against some AI robotics that's taken your job, that's going to be having a personal level of freedom where you'll be escaping to some island because you don't like what's happening in your country. And you'll be transacting, sending money back to the people that are stuck on that island because they can't escape. And the government won't be able to tell you what to do, and AI won't be able to tell you what to do. And you will know that the monetary policy that exists in Bitcoin today will be the same monetary policy in 10 years. And you won't have to worry about it, think about it, try and get a degree, go on spaces all day debating people. It's still going to be the same monetary policy. And that is available today if you got off 0 Bitcoin today and just did this. You don't even have to believe me. You just have to say, I'm going to do that just in case. I'm going to do that with a little bit while I do everything I want to do. But I'm going to allocate 10% to doing that, because it is absolutely financially irresponsible to not hedge in case the smartest people that are involved in Bitcoin right now, from the top of the financial world to those that actually have the Larry Finks of this world, that actually have algorithms that control the Fed and the Treasury and global finance, that have millions of Bitcoin in custody for their clients, that are saying that there's something up with the dollar, but there's not something up with Bitcoin. At that level, he's still doing it.
Well, yeah, exactly. This is why I said, mistakes of early adopters, including me, because I think 2025, you're still an early adopter. I know it's hard to understand, but if you look at, in fact, let me do this. I'm going to bring up.
I know that's true, Gary, while you're bringing that up, because people told me that when Bitcoin crashed from $30 to $3, it would never come back. People told me that $10 Bitcoin was absolutely celebrating the top. It's too late. I missed the boat. The price is too high. $100
Really?
is too late. I missed the boat. The price is too high. $1,000 is too late. I missed the boat. The price is too high. 10,000, 100,000. Every single day, someone has told me it's too late. I've missed the boat. The price is too high. What's the next Bitcoin?
And what are they saying now? Do you think many whales are buying right now? Or are they saying this is too high?
Well, I mean, I know. I mean, we built a whole culture, a whole community of people that have been involved with me from as early as 2011 to today in our company. That all they do is buy Bitcoin every single month, and they made a shit ton of Bitcoin in the early days. But they're saying, I've got excess fiat currency. What am I going to put it in? I'm going to save it in Bitcoin, and I'm going to do that. You know, so it is, because it's not an investment. It is a savings vehicle. And so if you then want to hedge and get fancy as your wealth grows, then cool. But your first job is to get wealthy.
Correct. Yeah. And wealth for me is like, it's having power, right? It's able to say yes and no. It's not, people think about the jets. I saw a comment here. Gary talks about $1 million houses like it's my minivan. Hey, you know what, dude? Like, it's just zeros. Like, see, that comment, a $300,000 mistake, a $30,000 mistake, a $3,000. It's all the same mistakes. It's just in the decision to cut a bad decision. Like, I make a lot of mistakes, acknowledging that I make mistakes, that the mining deal was a bad trade, that your ether trade is like, why do I hold on to this? Just communicating about it. Once I acknowledge that, I'm like, oh, okay. Like comparing Bitcoin against NVIDIA. I brought this chart up because, like, dude, NVIDIA is 26 years old. They're worth $3.5 billion. I think Bitcoin takes NVIDIA out in the next 18 months. That it's going to just move through Google, then it'll move through NVIDIA and Microsoft. It's literally, we're not competing with XRP, dude. We're competing with the entire fiat marketplace, and none of the crypto is going to survive this.
Well, NVIDIA is more likely to be a Bitcoin play.
I think of the Mag 7, NVIDIA is perfectly set up to be a Bitcoin player. But we don't. It doesn't matter. All I'm trying to show is that this stock went up. It's a $3.5 billion stock. It came out of nowhere. No, that's not true. It's been around 26 years. Bitcoin is 16, has no competition. This thing already has DOJ exposure because it's 80% of the market. It's got all kind of tariff issues. Bitcoin has no tariff issues. Zero tariff issues. And I know this is the Palantir. Let me go about Palantir. I can't explain to you what Palantir does. I can't explain really what NVIDIA's moat is. I know what
it does. It kills people. That's what it does.
Well, yeah. And I don't want to invest in that. See, I'm not an ESG investor, but I am not going to invest in Raytheon and killing. I could do that. Okay. I don't want to participate with that. I'm not going to have a big shaming contest on it. It's just not what I want to do. It's not what you want to do. Why would I invest in that when I can invest in this? This is a non-kinetic, nobody's going to get hurt kind of product. Okay. It doesn't have any pharmaceutical shit in there. It's not, the weight doesn't change, doesn't get reinflated by some government. It doesn't have any rules around it other than, hey, this is 21 million units. Look, I just think people haven't even been educated about this. And the reason I'm focused so much on the little community that listens to us, I think the people outside this crypto community are going to get Bitcoin quicker and easier and faster than the people that are currently in the system. And that the mistakes that are being made are literally like the guy you talked about that's doing drugs now. you guys have lost your way on this thing. Like, there's one king here. There's never two kings in any party. There's one king here, and it's the only one that literally has the test of time. We're comparing Ethereum's what, maybe 7 years old, with a 30-year-old kid as the CEO. Come on, man, these are not even close to being
dressed as a dinosaur on a stage, like doing all sorts of crazy. Like, it's wild.
It's wild. Okay, look, I don't invest in Tesla because if Elon gets shot, dude, Tesla's going to go down by 40%. He is key man risk. Like, you
he's
read
a classic example. Like, literally, he said, "I'm going to make a political decision, and because of that political decision, everyone around the world is trying to either destroy Teslas, or some government agency is doing a covert operation to destroy Teslas to kill that brand." That's a classic example of and this isn't, this is at the highest level.
This has been going on.
Right. This is the highest level in the world. I'm in the White House. I literally have contributed to the Trump administration. I'm the most important person in the world. I'm connected in every circle in the world. I'm the richest man in America, allegedly, but I still am a key person risk, even though I've reached that level. That immediately a decision that I made politically means that either someone sabotaging my brand and destroying all these Teslas, or activists are trying to destroy that brand.
Dude, like, if it's a little surprising to me. More people don't look at this and go, "Oh, wow, this is on center stage now." Now everyone knows that we have people who will attack the righteous. They will attack, attempt to kill, attempt to get rid of. This has been going on for hundreds of years, dude. This didn't just happen because we have now X and we know about it, or news media that's better. This has been going on for a long, long time. They're on stage doing this in your face, and people look at Bitcoin and go, "Oh, I wonder what this is about." It's like, what do you mean what this is about? This is freedom money here, man. That's what
and that brings me to why there's another part of Bitcoin, which is why we're here in the first place. I was in that room. I was writing that book, the first published book on Bitcoin, because nobody is power than that central banking system. There is no power greater than the central bank. That sits at the very, very top of the chain. And no matter how much you succeed politically, you could be President Trump yourself and you still got 2 assassination attempts at you. However you achieve, no matter where, nothing stops that train except one thing, which is that in 2008, an anonymous person or group of people called Satoshi Nakamoto messaged out to the cypherpunk mailing list, and those cypherpunks coded a bunch of open source code that sat on the largest distributed supercomputer that geographically now today exists in countries that hate each other, where no one can wipe out one country, and it is backed up on nodes by people all around the world, connected to satellites, with a bunch of people that dedicate and do nothing else but advocate for Bitcoin, even though they don't work for any company. And all they do is try and support Bitcoin and getting people into Bitcoin completely free, because there is this distributed supercomputer with open source code with no key person risk that allows people to own their own money, spend their own money, and have a monetary policy that will never change. We're never getting that again. And that is what is taking on that system. So every dollar you take out of the fiat currency system is a dollar that says F you to that system. And that's why I got into it. Everyone has their different reasons. There's many reasons to get into it. But for me, that's what excites me. And that's what gives me hope. And that's what keeps me going, where I've got all my economic value taken care of. But I'm still here. I'm still showing up. I'm still trying to help other people get on board. I'm still trying to communicate this and find the words to help people understand that this is the place to be. And that's the purpose that Bitcoin gives you, that it fixes so many problems for so many people, and then gives you the mental strength to be able to fix on the things that Bitcoin doesn't fix.
You know, you bring up something I hadn't planned on talking about this, hadn't really thought about it, but why are you doing this? You're spending a lot of time on being a spokesman for Bitcoin at no pay. Nobody's going to pay you for this, right? So why do you do this?
Well, it brings me back to that original purpose, like before Bitcoin was here. The very same thing that got me, to try and figure out what money was. The very same thing when my father lost all of his wealth. He put it in the stock market. He didn't know what he was doing. And he went from broke and a nobody, son of a bus driver that was never going to amount to anything, to making £1 million through real estate and property, to losing the whole damn thing. And the trauma that my father went through, saying to me, son, what happened to my money?
Damn.
That one question shaped the next 25 years for me. And we still got a couple more mistakes to cover. But that led me down a path of understanding everything I could about money. And what else is there to get up for? I mean, economically, what am I going to do? There still needs, what is it that we value in life, right?
You need to go to 37 conventions a year, man, and leave your wife 3 weekends every 6 months, and have an expense account and keep your little points of how many people you contacted.
Yeah.
And report to HR.
Exactly. Well, Bitcoin did take me around the world, so I got to visit every single country, and now I'm just too damn, I ain't got the energy to go to the conferences. But when I had the energy, being able to go to every continent in the world and see very unique problems, like I invested in Bitso in Mexico. I invested in AirTM in Venezuela.
You have invested in some stuff, bro.
I invested in Uno Coin in India. I invested in BitPesa in Nigeria and Kenya. And I invested in many of the largest companies in America, some in Europe. And Bitcoin just took me around the world, meeting the most interesting people and finding out how many reasons why people want Bitcoin, and the story of why people want Bitcoin in America is completely different to the story of why people want Bitcoin in India and why they want it in Mexico, and why a Russian oligarch wants it as well, which is completely different to the story of why a billionaire wants it. And why a sovereign nation wants it, whether you're a sanctioned sovereign nation or you're the leader of the world reserve currency, or you're literally, all those people have a reason why they need Bitcoin, and the vast majority of the world haven't figured it out yet. And that's how we know we're early, because they will figure it out. The game theory will roll out. Every single year I've been involved in Bitcoin, a new group of people realize why they need Bitcoin, and that trend has never stopped. There are a bunch of people that are discovering this year why they need Bitcoin, and that is at the highest level from the most powerful economy in the world, discovering why they need a Bitcoin strategic reserve, through to a rising superpower that is trying to build a new corridor and discovering why they need Bitcoin, through to oil-rich, energy-rich countries discovering why they need Bitcoin, through to a country that is being destroyed like Europe, knowing that they may be able to free themselves from the European Union and the ECB and become sovereign again if they can actually build Bitcoin, right down to the company, right down to the individual. And you know why I love it for the individual? Because we don't have to wait for our governments to do shit. They could fuck everything up. And Bitcoin gives me what I need, as long as I've accumulated enough Bitcoin economic power to have a shield away from everything that the government throws me. And that's kind of why my next move was, one of the Bitcoin mistakes. You talked about real estate. So one of the things I wanted to do when I'd hit a certain level of economic power with Bitcoin was to move to a small island with no crime and build a castle where there's no, a figurative castle, where I don't owe anything to a bank. And I've got everything, even if I never leave that house during a COVID lockdown, I've got everything I could ever want within that house to protect myself from any scenario, whether it's war, whether it's crime, whether it's ransom, and just be able to get everything that I could possibly need. Now, to pay for that luxury of listing as many things that could go wrong in the world and being able to build something that would protect me from those to a certain degree, it cost me 1,000 Bitcoin to make that purchase. And that 1,000 Bitcoin purchase that I made in order to build that today is worth, that real estate is worth 250 Bitcoin. And so it cost me 750 Bitcoin because, in order to have that luxury, that 1,000 Bitcoin is now worth 250 Bitcoin if I sold it all and gave that to someone else today. So if someone else wants what I built at today's value of Bitcoin, you'd have to give me 250 Bitcoin. And that's after all the price appreciation, after all the art, after all the rare furniture that I bought from the best places in the world, after all the security, after all the wars, after all the everything, that 1,000 Bitcoin purchase will get me 250 Bitcoin today.
I put it a different way. I live in a really nice home. I paid $8.5 million for it, and this house now is worth, if I would have taken that $8.5 million and put it into Bitcoin, my house is worth $90 million today. Look, it's a nice house, man, but it's not worth $90 million. And the truth is, it'll be worth $123 million probably by the end of the year. Now that's a trade that, hey, I'm into it. I like it here. I have a lot of Bitcoin. Now, if I didn't have a lot of Bitcoin, I'd sell this house, dude. I'd sell this house so fast and go live in an apartment. But I have been able to accumulate a lot of Bitcoin over the last 4 years. And I think I'm early, man. Like I look at guys like you. I like you so much because I've talked to other guys that have been around since you've been around. And I'm like, hey, what's your average cost? And then they ask me, and I'm like, 47, 45, whatever it is at the time. And they look at me like, God, dang. I'm like, why would you respond that way, dude? And it dawned, oh wow, you stopped buying. I don't understand that, dude. Like when I get on a trade that's a winner, I keep buying the winner. I don't dump it. You've never seen Warren Buffett dump a winner ever. He keeps adding to it. Warren Buffett I'm not a big fan of Warren Buffett because I think he's actually a vulture buyer. I think the guy is a total, like, let me just wait for the end of the world and I'm going to capitalize on it. He may have been brilliant at one time, but the lie is that Warren Buffett is so esteemed and so well regarded, yet 99% of the people that watch him believe in diversification.
Yeah.
When 72% of his portfolio was made up of 4 companies, man, till recently. Right now, it's like he's so heavily into cash right now. He is not a diversified investor. He is a own it all, like as much of it as you can. And he does not want to be early. You don't know anything that he bought early. Apple wasn't early. The railroads weren't early.
Well, I'm a bit more. I come from the other part of me. I'm very skeptical, like about like I used to be.
No one knows that about you, man.
But when I see someone like Warren Buffett, I look at what made Warren Buffett successful. And look, I could believe his book, I could believe his story, but another way of looking at it is he hangs around in circles that you don't hang around in, and when you hang around in those circles, it's a lot easier to know when to buy and sell and what to buy. And he also hangs around in circles where if he wants to crash the market or if he wants to pump the market, he's surrounded by all the people that have all the capability to make that happen. And that may make you a genius investor, but, you know, that's not the opportunity that's available to you. You don't have that opportunity.
Correct.
I don't have that opportunity. I've been networking my whole life and I'm nowhere near that. Gary's been hustling his whole life and he's probably nowhere near that. He could sit down and have a meeting with Michael Saylor, but he can't sit down and get to the level of let's sit down with Larry Fink and figure out where the markets are going next. But what is the great equalizer? The great equalizer is that open source code of Bitcoin. And the rules are never going to change. Anyone can participate. And it is beating everything that they know. And that's not coming again. It's not coming again. And you may find out something. You may find out what the next big robotics AI, you may create the next robot that rules the world. But even if you do, make sure that while you're building that, just in case you fail, you're betting on Bitcoin as well. Because guess what? Building a business and succeeding is where a lot of these people made their wealth. But I'm telling you, there is a million things that need to line up as a million things need to line up with you and your skill, as well as a million things need to line up that you have zero control over. And then you might create that next robot, and then you might be hanging around in circles with Warren Buffett. And even then, you still might not be hanging around in those circles.
No, you're not going to get invited to those circles. You know, it's a really interesting thing you bring up because for those in the audience that don't know, I've literally had 3 careers in 3 industries. I don't know why anyone isn't told they can have multiple very successful careers in industries. You do not have to devote yourself 50, 60, 70 years to one industry. How boring do you want your life to be? Oh, wow, I was in the automobile industry for 600 years. I mean, like for me, I'm so excited that I just moved because energy in 2002, I'm like, man, this party's over. I'm out of here. I don't want to do this for the next 20 years. Thinking that I could create, you know, something of value, get in the payments industry. You know, I could never get to any of those top guys. Never. I come into this industry, first phone call, CEO and ID. Sure, I don't know him. He doesn't know me. Sure, Gary, come on in next week. Gemini. Sure, Gary, come on in next week. I mean, Coinbase. Sure, Gary, come on in there. Everybody. Michael Saylor. Yeah, let me buy you lunch, bro. I see what you're doing over there. You've done enough. You show me an industry that gives access to people like you and I who are actually trying to create good things. I will show you an industry that will never die, folks. Okay? Because it's open. And openness means innovation, ideas, creation. See, I think the crypto people, I think there are some people that are very nervous about competition, but this is not a world where it's finite. Simon doesn't have to lose for me to win. Simon and I can both win, man. Okay? Like, we're not competing with you. He and I don't have an interest in creating a club or a cartel. Like, those are not healthy things. I love there's transparency here. Every time there's not transparency, there's opacity. And every time there's opacity, there's a crime. Minimally of gross inefficiency. Yeah. Minimally, if not an overt, calculated crime like RICO shit and monopolies.
I think that's the perfect segue to the final mistake I'd like to share.
We work great together, don't we, man?
Sorry. Yeah. Awesome. I think, like, Gary, I love, you make me think all the time, and that's incredibly profound what you just said there. I've never been involved in something, where even if it was my career in investment banking, even if it was in hanging out with politicians trying to change the banking system, or creating a business, where I'm not trying to figure out how to keep something a secret so that I've got a certain edge, and then they fuck me over, and they've got better contacts, and they figure out how to do everything better. And we're just trying to figure out how to, bringing out the worst in humanity, right? Where we end up hating each other over something where we don't hate each other. Why the hell should we hate each other? Well, the game was set up in that way. But in Bitcoin, it's like, you could tell me, like, I could think you're crazy for your reason why you like Bitcoin. And you could think I'm absolutely wild. You could say, hey, Simon, I'm an American. I'm a patriot. I believe in the dollar. I believe in America. And I believe that Bitcoin's going to make America great again. And I could say, actually, America is a big problem for a lot of people in the world. And I believe that the dollar needs to be, we need to compete with the dollar. And you could sit there and say to me, well, I'm an American patriot and you're thinking about that side of the world. But actually, we got the same story. We just want Bitcoin to succeed. And we could sit here and argue about why America is the greatest country in the world. And I could give you all the reasons why it's a problem for other people. But we still got the same. We're still on the same team. And that's very, very unique. I don't think that exists much. But my final mistake I'd like to share, and it was a very public mistake, and people know me for it, was in 2020, I came to New York, and I wanted to invest in as many companies as I could that were helping people borrow against their Bitcoin. So I sat down with, Zach Prince from BlockFi and Alex Majinski from Celsius. And I decided to make some equity investments. One of them, BlockFi, I couldn't get in because Galaxy said, "Nah, don't let him in. He's a bit of a wild card. Give the equity to our VC."
Who would have made that at Galaxy? The top guy?
Yeah, so the CEO wanted to bring us in because we had a community of lots of Bitcoiners, and he wanted all of my community to become customers. But the VC said, no, you can't let him in. He's a wild card. Make sure you just give me the round. I'll subscribe to it. So because the VC said you're not allowed to have him in a round, firstly, thank you. You got me out of a dog, and you ended up with that. But the point is that he wasn't free to make that decision. Right. He wanted to make that decision, and the VC said, no, you're not allowed to make that decision because I own you. I've got control over you because you created a Bitcoin company rather than just buying Bitcoin. Okay. And so another one is I ended up buying shares in Celsius, which next month, the founder will be facing his prison sentence for scamming 650,000 people. But I ended up investing in it. And because I was a shareholder in it, I decided to get smart. And I wanted to get a little bit, and I'd say, look, I'm going to take a bit of my Bitcoin, and rather than sell it, I'm going to borrow against it. And then I want to put a bunch more Bitcoin in it because I'm going to earn some yield. And then that yield is going to pay the interest on the debt that I borrow. So I ended up with, it was, for me, it was a meaningful. I ended up like one of the largest creditors in it. But for me, it was a small percentage of my Bitcoin, and I risk managed it. Some people did that 100%. And they ended up with no Bitcoin at the end of it. And in 2-year bankruptcy case, and realizing that, they were in that wiped people out. Like a lot of people got wiped out by that. There was regulatory issues. There was key person issues. There was fraud. There was scammers. There was lies. There was deceit. There was all sorts of shit. And you know what? I spent 2 years of my life because I had it didn't make a difference to me financially, but there was 650,000 that got wiped out, maybe about 40,000 where it was their lifetime savings of these people. And just because I wanted to, because I found it interesting, I learned about the legal system. I learned about the corruption in the bankruptcy process. I learned about all the mistakes and all the fraud and all that stuff. But I dedicated 2 years of my life just to trying to turn that into a better outcome for myself and the other creditors. And it's still a shit show. And there's still people going to prison. And there's still money being stolen. And there's still a company that was meant to go public that's not going public. and all of the headaches in the world that came from that. But because I had Bitcoin economic power and I didn't put all of my money into it, I was able to just say, for the next 2 years, I'm going to do this to try and get a better outcome and for the fun of it. And I could have messed it all up. And so the story is, I see a lot of people right now that are trying to get fancy. And they're trying to say, if I could take my Bitcoin and I could put it here and I could do it in there and then I could buy this product and I could borrow against this. And I'm not saying whether it's going to work or whether it's going to go wrong, but hear my lesson. Firstly, probably not a good idea to mess around with all the fancy shit. But at the same time, I recognize that some people are going to be doing the Michael strategy and playing the fiat game and not wanting tax. I live in tax neutrality. Other people don't. You know, I recognize that your situation is different. You've accumulated wealth in your 401k. I had it in self-custody. You know, my circumstance is not your circumstance. So I can imagine and understand a set of circumstances where you may mess around with this stuff. But the thing that saved me, I mess around with that. It went wrong. I violated my principles. It cost me a bunch of Bitcoin. It cost me 2 years of my life because I decided to mess around with that. But because I did it with not everything and just messed around with a percentage of it, it didn't matter that I made a ridiculous decision and got caught up in a massive fraud. And I could help other people get a better outcome for it. So if you're going to mess around with all that stuff, I understand some circumstance will lead you to want to do that. Just make sure it's not the full, it's not the full thing. And you've got a percentage where you're still going to have that Bitcoin, even if all the stupid shit you did turned out to be smart or stupid.
Yeah. I think, look, I'm not judgmental about what people do with their money, right? You're a grown man. You do whatever you want with your money, your body. Don't hurt anybody else. Don't get in my face, and I'll never even say anything to you. It's not my business. Just the very point that I can't allocate 80, 90% of my wealth to an idea is the first warning sign to me. Well, why the hell am I doing it then? If I can't, with any more than 10 or 5 or 6% real faith in, oh, wow, this is going to be a winner, why am I even doing it for a small amount? See, the older I get, I don't want 2 girlfriends, dude. I would like one really awesome woman to be a companion with. I don't want 30 of them. They're fucking paying that. It's too much data, right? I don't want 40 cars. I have 1 car. I don't need 3 cars to do what? I don't need 3 homes. I don't need 14 different crypto projects. I need the project. I don't need 14 gold mines. I need a really prolific oil well that's really cheap to find. I don't need all these guys with the deserts. All they have is a lot of expenses, man. I have Bitcoin that requires no maintenance, no machinery, no people, no HR, no legal, no contracts, no smart contracts. I don't need a smart contract. I need Bitcoin. Smart contract. What the hell is that? So I don't really get it, right? I have no CEO risk. I have no treasury risk. I can convert it to any currency I want. I see the entire world's currency as a total Ponzi scheme. It is a total Ponzi scheme, okay? They make it out of thin air. And I'm looking at this going, man, I am literally living in history, dude. This is happening on our watch. And I thought it was going to happen after I was dead. But we are going through a global reset. And it pains me, not too much, but it pains me a little bit that people cannot see Bitcoin's role. And more importantly, if you can't see Bitcoin's role, you most certainly don't see what's going on the world stage. It is literally begging for a Switzerland. Whatever's going to happen and however it's going to happen, and you and I have views on this that we could probably spend 4 hours talking about, but most certainly, whatever the scenario is, it is begging for a Switzerland. Okay, and most certainly we'll have a Switzerland somewhere. I think Bitcoin's that Switzerland. No matter what happens, who ends up in control, Bitcoin's neutrality is going to play a significant role here. It's big enough. It's $2 trillion. None of these other crypto projects have anywhere the market cap to get the attention. I don't care about the decentralized nature of it, which they're not, but none of them have the size to be able to allow for a pension to go into it, or much less a government plan. So I think we're early, man. I mean, I know your weighted average is way below mine, and your volume is appreciably higher. And I like that. See, I love having super rich independent friends. That to me is like, wow, that's cool. And we're cool cats because we don't care. You've never, hey Gary, how many you got, man? We don't do that. We don't care. What we know is, oh, we're both long-term holders. We both believe our consistency in our philosophy is correct. The consistency in our philosophy. It doesn't change every 16 months. It's like boring. This is how you make super money, dude. Boring.
That's an interesting point, Gary. And again, the reason I like hanging out with you, and we hang out on Spaces, because you inspire new thinking that I hadn't thought about before. And just in my mind, it came to we live in a world, right? I involve myself in activism, and I'm working in other fields of my life with people that are financially destroyed, but I know that if they can adopt this mindset, they could be financially destroyed where they are today. And if they adopted this and watched this video and did it for the next 10 years, I personally believe, I can't promise it for you, but I personally believe that I'll be doing the same as you, different percentages. Percentages are percentages. Like, you're just doing the same strategy. I'll do the same strategy with you. But if you are broke today, when I was completely broke in 2011 in debt, and you do the same, then it really doesn't matter about your financial status today, because you've only got so many hours in a day, right? And most of us in business, in life, to try and progress, you have to decide, am I going to hang around with, people that have already achieved this amount of wealth? But actually, isn't it pretty cool that we can work with people that are financially destroyed today because you like them, you like their ethos, you have the same interests, and you could work with someone that's achieved a level of wealth as Gary has, or someone that's achieved at different levels, and all of us can just hang out, and we know that or at least my belief says, if you do this for the next 10 years, you're going to be economically powerful, even if you're broke today. And so all of us are going to be economically powerful. And the reality of the world, money, there's a lot of issues with money, but there is one thing that I do know in how the world works, is that if you want to make a difference in the world, when you are economically powerful, you can have a much, much greater, opens more doors. It allows you to buy more influence. It allows you to get credit that you don't get when you don't have that economic power. And that is how you change the world, is by becoming economically powerful with people that are ideologically aligned. And the interesting thing is, I could hang around with someone that has no economic power today, do this for the next 10 years, and I know that you're going to be more economically powerful. And that's the opportunity. That's why we hang out on Spaces. So I'm just going to say, I'm going to rip this video. I'm going to upload it to my YouTube. If you're watching this on my YouTube, then go follow Gary on X. And I come up to his Spaces regularly. You can come join us and ask a question and tell us whether you're going to do this and why you're not going to do this. And we'll try and whip you into shape and say, why are you doing that stupid shit? And you may come back to us and say, well, I invested in XRP and I got 500X, and the last laugh on you. But I'll tell you, okay, great, you got your 500X. Put it in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
Don't ride that pony till it breaks. Or if you're waiting for $10,000. Look, I can't believe people give me or you grief. You come into a space and you talk to some guys that have been doing this, and I can do pretty much whatever I want now. Don't know why you wouldn't listen to it. Like, it's what I don't really care. You want to go broke 13 times in your life? You do this over and over. Now, I'll tell you, I don't actually want to do anything with you. You know, if you keep being broke and stupid, I don't want to hang out with you. Like, if I start saying stupid stuff, Simon should say, "Hey, Gary, you know that comment you made, it's a little inconsistent. I need people to correct me if I'm going down the wrong path. I mean, I can most certainly get off track." You know, I started looking at some of this MSTY stuff and the MicroStrategy stuff, and all these call options and leaps and this new program and this new and we're going to see these forever. Okay, once this thing hits Wall Street, you're going to see products. Here's the other area. I think stock market's getting ready to get slaughtered. I can buy Palantir for $60, or do I buy Bitcoin for 85? This is going to be the next. This is going to be the next one right here. Oh my God, I can buy the Mag 7 cheaper than I could in the last 5 years, but I got to pay more for Bitcoin. Dude, that is the sign Bitcoin's done. We have won the game. Once people start going, I'm going to buy. I think this is going to happen, dude. You're going to see Bitcoin go up, all the equities come down, and you're going to see people stymied, not knowing what to do, and they're going to go buy the Mag 7 instead of Bitcoin.
Yeah. Yeah.
Afraid to say it,
well,
but
you know,
right?
The people that do have the power to control markets, the Larry Finks of this world, you know, they're saying, and they got all of their buddies into Bitcoin, they're saying there is a problem with the dollar, and Bitcoin is
saying it out loud, Simon.
That problem.
I did not think they would be saying this out loud.
and this is a guy that can make that happen.
Totally. That is totally right, man. And like,
all right, Gary.
Yeah. Hey, Simon,
we covered most of the major mistakes. And I reckon we should get people to join us on X, come up to a space in the future, subscribe, share, get more people to understand this, because I just genuinely think I can do shameless plugging here right now. I will shamelessly plug Bitcoin for the rest of my life till as long as I can talk. And it's pure. You know, it's you could come and people say to me, what's your agenda? Well, my agenda is that we're all aligned around Bitcoin, and I think it solves some really meaningful problems in the world. So I'll shamelessly say, share this video with everybody. You know, make sure that all of your family, everybody gets the opportunity to, you know, understand about Bitcoin, because I'm, you know, this is such an important thing, and not enough people do own Bitcoin. And even if you don't buy it or you don't believe in it, just starting the process of getting on zero and allocating some to it and then learning how it works, it could just be the most important decision you ever make. So please share and get this out to as many people.
Yeah, Simon, thank you so much, buddy. You're always really cool to have a communication with. I know you're helping a lot of people. You guys follow Simon. He does a show on Fridays. What time do you do that? For 2:00 Eastern? You do a
yeah, something like that. I go live every Friday for Bitcoin Hard Talk. Yeah, on YouTube.
Yeah,
go to YouTube, and I've got you can subscribe there. Yeah,
he puts out some awesome content. So you guys follow.
Yeah, I try to combine it with macro geopolitics. Yeah, I believe that Bitcoin is a Bitcoin story, a macro story, a market story, and it's actually a political story. So I try and combine it all together. And sometimes you can pick just the Bitcoin bit, just the macro bit, or just the politics bit. So I try and break it down.
Yeah, you're awesome, dude. Thank you very much. Okay, really appreciate it. I'll see you, I'm sure, sometime this week. And I will own more Bitcoin next week than I do this week.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Gary.
Thank you, buddy. Ciao.